Okay, hello and welcome to this panel. We're going to get stuck into the topic of Gen AI as it applies to gaming. Probably go a little bit broader around that as well, and just think about how Gen AI is also affecting things like interactive media, video, sound, and other areas. But we have some great guests, and the focus for today will be gaming. So yeah, I'm Dave Haynes from FOV. I'm just going to go around one by one. If you guys can all introduce yourself. Troy, maybe we can start with you.
Awesome. Hey, all, excited to be here. Troy Kirwin, I'm an investor on the team at A16Z Games. I focus most of my investing in tools, tech, infrastructure, AI for games and interactive entertainment. Been here for about 2 years. Before that, was at Unity for close to 5 years on the strategy and corporate development team. Led a whole bunch of partnerships and acquisitions, basically helping to extend Unity from an engine to a platform of services.
Nice, awesome. Topi?
Hello, I'm Topi Manu. I'm part of Google Cloud's AI GTM team. I have previous background working with digital natives and startups, especially gaming in the Nordics.
Awesome. And lastly, Emmanuel.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again. I'm co-founder and CEO of Scenario.com. We've built a platform that is specifically for game studios, which lets them generate visual content very, very consistently with a lot of control, specifically because they train their own models, the studio train their own models on Scenario.
Yeah, awesome. Brilliant. So I guess the headline of this panel is just about, is AI kind of living up to the hype? What's actually reality versus what founders and creators and startups are seeing out there on the ground? So I'm going to dive into that first. Emmanuel, when it comes to Scenario, you've been building this for a couple of years now. How ready do you feel the industry is for tools like yours? And maybe you can just briefly explain how people are using it today.
Okay, first, how people are using it. There's a wide range of application and use cases. But if you follow the life of an asset, concept to production, typically studios would use GenAI for concept art, which is pretty easy, I would say. And I would say maybe 95, if not 99% of studios use GenAI for concepting. But then they also use GenAI for production-ready assets. And that's the very exciting and I think very valuable part of the chain. They also use GenAI for marketing when it comes to generating a lot of marketing assets, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and so on. These are less sensitive assets, but they're costly. And then there is the holy grail to me, which is generating live in the game, like live generation at runtime, which I think is a less mature use case. So we've seen studios going from one use case to the other. And the reason why I'm very bullish, very excited about the maturity, is I'm seeing studios putting more than just 1 or 2 artists onto the platform, whether it's us and others. They are really training 5, 10, 15, 20 people that starts to collaborate together around GenAI. And that is a sign of maturity to me. It's not just one guy that has a mid-journey subscription on their credit card and expends it. No, it's getting more mature than that with real enterprise long-term contracts.
Yeah, got it. And I guess in different areas, the maturity matters more than in others, right? If you're doing something in the healthcare space and something's supposed to provide a diagnosis, like if something goes wrong or you're only 80% there, then that's like a challenge. In gaming, maybe there's a little bit more acceptance, or sometimes the actual bugs can turn into features. But when it comes to what you're doing with Scenario, allowing people to produce and create these assets, where are the gaps today that maybe someone would say, hang on, well, this isn't quite right, and I still need to do this, or I still need to do that?
So I would say this, it depends on your style and your game. It depends on the level of detail of your art. Not every art is easy to generate today with the models we have. Even though Flux and the new models might fix things, it's easier typically to work to get production-ready assets for mobile games, casual gaming. The art is less complex than AAA. And for that first category, we have one customer at least that told us, hey guys, 80% of everything I'm prompting out of Scenario is production ready without any touch-up. That is a specific use case around certain backgrounds and certain assets and characters, but 80%, when you know the randomness of generation, that's huge. So people are getting there step by step. And it might not be 80% everywhere, but it's not like one image out of 500 anymore, which was the case, back in the SD 1.5 days.
Yeah, nice. Troy, you've actually last year and this year been doing this AI times games survey. I guess you're actually seeing on the ground how studios are using different things. You're probably seeing some areas get more adoption, some new areas emerging. So maybe with that lens, just tell us about what you're seeing and how it relates to how mature your space is.
Yeah, I think there's two things to say. One is we took a look at sentiment across the industry. AI can be quite a hot topic, especially at the larger studios. But when you actually talk to folks, 70% of people, based on the survey, are excited or incredibly excited about AI. And then when you ask them, how do you think the rest of the industry feels? It comes down to they think only 35% are excited. So there's a bit of disparity between like how individuals feel and how they think the rest of the crowd feels. In terms of effectiveness, the studios that we talked to, both qualitatively and quantitatively through the survey, over 38% said that GenAI has increased their productivity in their studio today by more than 20%. And it's about the same in terms of cost savings. So it's driving real margin improvements and increased productivity and creativity today. And that's only going to increase, of course, over time. I think in terms of use cases, it's starting with storyboarding and concepting and, almost like, 70% of studios are using that today. Everyone from the CEO who wants to mock something up all the way down to your junior artist. And then over time, the excitement is there to try everything from localization to marketing to even production ready assets. And we're also seeing a lot of interest and excitement on the live ops side, of course, both to ship new, live DTC content, refreshes, seasonal packs, but also in terms of optimizing your game, whether that's personalization, whether it's pricing optimization, churn prediction and prevention. So there's so many ways, both in terms of how to ship the game faster and with a better margin profile, and then also how to improve the upside and the revenue profile.
Yeah. And with some of those kind of new emerging use cases that you're seeing, do you think that's a function of actually the technology is getting more mature and more capable? Or is it more actually founders and companies are figuring out, like, we've had a year to test this thing, here's a product that we could make around it?
Yeah, great question. We asked in the survey, what is stopping you from adopting AI at the moment? What's the number one thing, whether it's, internal, stress or distaste for AI, or is it, legal concerns? Over 50% of respondents said that it's model quality and accuracy. But of course, we're seeing this day by day, the improvements coming from, when I launched the survey, Black Forest Labs had not come out of stealth and released their Flux model, which is a massive improvement over some of the existing image models. And so even this morning, there's a new release from Tencent in terms of an open world simulation diffusion model. So the space is rapidly transforming. If we think back to Midjourney, there was 4 releases of Midjourney, and it got little uptake, and then all of a sudden with Midjourney 5, there was a rapid groundswell of interest in trying these things because it hit that quality bar. We've seen that in images over the course of 2024. We've begun to see that with video, and one of my predictions is that in 2025, it's all going to be about 3D and AI generated worlds.
Yeah. But Topi, from your perspective, maybe you can just explain a little bit about Google's role. And then the main question I wanted to ask is, are we right to think that the technology, the core technology and the models are really improving? What do you think some key unlocks over the last 6 to 9 months have been?
Well, we kind of went over it. So a lot of models are coming out there almost like weekly. We are on the cusp of seeing 3D models as well. We believe in choice. So we are focusing on offering our management platform, what we call Vertex AI. And we want to include all models in it, open source, really commercial ones, big ones, or even our own open ones. And of course, you have smaller models for smaller tasks. But as we know quite well, From Google perspective, a successful AI implementation is a lot more than just a model. There's a lot of connectors, embeddings, infrastructure, orchestration, things like this. We want to offer all of that. So we're actually putting our bets on making this new innovation horizon as free and as option rich as possible.
Got it. So, I mean, this is a pretty broad topic and covers many different formats and modalities. So, Emmanuel, you first started working more with 2D assets and then moving to textures and now thinking about 3D and skyboxes and things like that. But then we're also kind of stretching into video. Video is getting very impressive. Music and sound effects. I know that you've backed some companies in that space, Troy. So maybe let's just kind of zoom out. Just where are we on the maturity scale on some of these? Like, where do we think the next big things that we'll see over the next 6 months?
Well, maybe I'll focus on 3D. So there's been, a couple different lanes of innovation there in terms of asset generation. About 2 years ago, Google started the game releasing their model, and then the end of last year, Luma had released their Genie's model, which was a large step function improvement. But the complaints from artists were that the topology wasn't correct, and also the prompt cohesion was not accurate enough to get the needs that they wanted. Also, the latency was too small to be able to kind of iterate and make it feel more like, sculpting than the sort of slot machine, prompt and wait a minute. Now, over the course of 2024, we've seen quite a bit of improvement. There's been models from companies like Tripo and Demos, which have made massive improvements both on the topology side as well as on the latency side. And I happen to know a few companies who are in stealth whose models I've gotten a peek at, and it's really starting to reach that kind of V4, V5 of Midjourney moment that we talked about before, which is why I'm excited about the availability of these models to studios. Now, that said, the studios we talk to are still playing around with using some of these models that are out there today for gray boxing and prototyping, but they're not yet at the standard for production ready assets. So excited about that front. There's also been the 3D capture side, and I know Emmanuel has some experience in this front, and there's new technologies like Gaussian splatting, which have made it much more efficient to both capture and render some of these scenes. And there's a lot of interest these days around world models and spatial intelligence, and it's been exciting on the AI front. One of A16Z's big investments in a company called World Labs was just announced. This is a lab from Fei Li, Ben Mildenhall, who was the author of the NERF paper, and a handful of other top researchers who believe that AGI and the next step in terms of like frontier models will come from spatial and 3D models.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Topi, yeah, would love your thoughts on the different kind of media formats and what you're seeing from a Google perspective.
Yeah, so multimodality is key, and we're like right there with everyone. Like we see that unlocking many kinds of innovation. When it comes to that, we should always consider the context window, which usually is forgotten. I see the press sometimes hyping something, but they never discuss, okay, what is the context window in prompting or output? So while we really value that we have up to 2 million token context windows where you can really harness the multimodality, I expect that to be even in more premium with 3D. So you really need to like be sure that on all layers of innovation, you can really harness the power of all of these mediums.
Yeah. Emmanuel, your perspective on this?
I would say, so Troy, thanks. Great feedback on 3D. My feeling is the following. My feeling is that we're seeing a real use case for 3D in production in 1 year. I would also say that there is a huge gap between what we see on Twitter and Reddit and what's going on and what's happening within the studios. The crowd on Twitter and Reddit get to try the model in the next hour that they're released. Studios, they have schedules, they have production timelines, they have projects, and they are much slower to adopt. It's completely normal. But that's why there is a lag between the release of the news and the adoption of the models, and it's to be taken into account when you're selling in a space.
If I could just add on that, so we invest in both game studios as well as the tooling providers, and the thing that we constantly say to the game studios is, your big advantage here is you can try out all of these tools without the constraints and tight ropes that the larger studios need to balance. Both because, from an innovator's standpoint, but also, the larger studios, their org chart basically constrains them from being able to try out new tools. The old world of game development, all these tools were highly specialized, and you had environment artists who were trained in SpeedTree, which is a tool strictly for modeling vegetation assets, and 30,000 people in the world knew how to use the tool. In the new world, anyone will be able to generate vegetation assets alongside character assets, alongside other prompts, and at the same time those same people will be able to generate sound effects and music. So what happens when all these specialized roles get smashed together and you go from creative technicians to creative generalists who are able to, with very, very small teams, have the output of massive teams? And so it's a game changer for the creative front, and from a consumer perspective, it's an extremely exciting time to get new entertainment experiences from small teams who can innovate.
Yeah, from our point of view, we've made a few different bets, both on the tooling side, but also on the studio side. I look at someone like Iconic Games that we invested in earlier this year. That's kind of their thesis. They want to come at like, well, we want to build AAA games, but because we don't have that legacy, or we're hiring teams from scratch, we can do that with a blank slate, and we can build an AI first studio, which hopefully puts them at a big advantage. But Troy, just coming back to you, and I know you've seen a lot of studios also come through your speedrun program. That kind of begs the question, who's going to win here? Is it existing studios that really know how to make games, have distributions, have fan bases, have IP already? Is it people like Iconic who are saying, well, we want to do that, but we can do that cheaper, better, faster, etc.? Or is there actually a third category of gaming companies where they're just building new types of game or gameplay, which wasn't possible before we had some of these different technologies?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, if you look at the current gaming ecosystem, the innovation in terms of game designs tends to come from the indies, and then fast followed by the larger AAA publishers. And so I believe that you're going to see more innovation in game design from the indies, and they'll be able to experiment and try new concepts, both in terms of how to ship games that could have existed 5 years ago much faster, but more excitingly, able to ship new types of game designs that were never before possible with, real-time asset generation, or with, autonomous agents and AI NPCs in those games. And we've seen some very interesting examples of studios who have shipped games today using AI for conversational AI. So I'm excited to see more teams try out the tech and see what they can do with it.
Yeah, got it. I want to switch gears a little bit and just now talk about the game engines themselves. So on the one hand, we're seeing someone like Unity saying, hey, we want to go and partner with the best of breed tools to allow devs to build in the Unity engine itself. And I'd love Emmanuel to talk about that in a minute. But on the other hand, we're also seeing people like Google's DeepMind putting out projects like Game Engine, which is, okay, actually, are we going to need game engines before? Like, is there going to be another way to do that? So yeah, maybe starting with the existing game engines. Emmanuel, just kind of talk to a little bit about how you're working with some of the existing players like Unity.
We do work with Unity. We have Scenario is now integrated in Unity with others, by the way. And Unity's vision is to be some sort of app store where a Unity developer could immediately leverage any AI tool with one single subscription. What I'm gonna say though is, as you said, new game engines will be developed that will allow for real-time generation of the game, of the world, of the graphics, of the actions. And that's the demo I was waiting for. The Doom demo that we saw last week is precisely what I think is going to be the future in the next, I would say 5 to 10 years, because it's going to take time to get to production. But I definitely see every pixel being generated live.
Yeah, interesting. Topi, I know you're not from Google's DeepMind team, but did you see that paper? What are your thoughts on some of this cutting edge stuff?
I think it's clear that a word like gaming, where one could say the best developers live and the most progressive thinkers live or work in, when those people meet this new innovation horizon, it's going to go to places. I probably shouldn't discuss DeepMind's roadmap. I'll let them talk about it, but I think it's clear that gaming will show the way for all industries, especially in this multimodality. And about this real-time generation of big pixels, I think it's only a matter of latency and compute at this time. And of course, we will see many attempts for that. At first will fail and people will laugh at them, but that's the way you get there. All of the innovation comes through a hard-trodden path, I say.
Interesting. We have quite a big investor audience for this roundtable. So I just want to come to investment areas and value capture. Troy, when you think about this space, you've got people making the foundational models. We've seen a lot of VC dollars chasing that side of things. And then on the other hand, you have people like Scenario who are really taking that and saying, hey, we can build a product that really matches users. You also have large companies there who are adding AI into their existing products. With your investor hat on, where do you see that value accruing, and how do you respond to that with your investment thesis in this space?
Yeah, it's still kind of an open question that investors debate. Of course, I personally believe it's both. And A16Z, has made some large investments in some of the foundational model companies, both closed source, into companies like Audiogram or 11 Labs, but also open source too, in companies like Mistral or Black Forest Labs. And I think there's opportunities for both strategies to work. And then, of course, we're very, very excited about companies building at the application layer. And I think particularly in the category of games where, having a solution like Scenario that is enterprise grade, that studios can get their hands on, that is purpose built for the workflows and the integrations, like Emmanuel mentioned, plugging into Unity. So yeah, there's opportunities to win on both fronts. Now, in terms of like specific use cases that we're excited about, I personally believe the thesis of AI is best in the scenarios where it can act as services as software. In other words, attacking large cost buckets where there is existing outsourced work. So some of the categories, as an example, most studios will outsource their ad creation, and now they can generate those ad creatives and A/B test, 1,000 a week rather than wait a month or 3 months to get 1,000 type of assets back. Another one of these cost buckets is QA, where, as an example, one of our speedrun companies, which is our accelerator for very early stage companies building in games and tech, this company Nunu is attacking the QA space by building multimodal agents that can test the game. They recently beat the world record for Pokemon Emerald, and are being used by studios large and small in order to allow studios to test faster and iterate faster in terms of incorporating those improvements.
Yeah, super interesting. I guess we're drawing to a close now. I've got a couple more questions to ask. And one thing I did want to address, because I think it's something that investors have as a bit of a flag, and maybe that's making them slightly more cautious around this space, but also in the gaming industry. And that's everything around copyright and IP. So yeah, open to anyone, maybe Emmanuel, because you're dealing directly with the studios. maybe a thorny topic. What are your thoughts there?
Of course, the bigger the company, the more sensitive it is. The mid-sized game studios, I wouldn't say don't care, but are way less sensitive. And we use open source models with that we don't really know how they got trained, of course. The lawyers and the legal team we spoke with, however, consider that if they fine-tune the model using their own IP to reproduce that existing IP, they feel definitely on the safe side of things versus using straight off Midjourney or straight off Stable Diffusion. So that's one data point. It doesn't solve everything, but at least we saw green lights to go to production using fine-tuning. By the way, they are like ethical models being developed. And by that, I mean models being developed on fully licensed data sets. And we should expect this to be a significant part of the industry for a while until there is a big, whatever, judgment or Supreme Court arbitration and so on. I would say copyright has to evolve as well, not just IP, but copyright meaning the AI content, the generated content being eligible for copyright. That's not really the case yet, but the US Copyright Office has signaled that if creativity can be proven, such as like if enough human effort and human creativity can be proven, then copyright should be granted for generated content. And that is why studios should care about the traceability of the data of the of the creative process and being able to prove how such an image or a model or a 3D model was made, because that might be useful for applying for copyrights. But it's definitely moving fast.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. I think it feels like there's 4 or 5 other topic areas that we could dive really deep into, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So maybe we can just wrap up with a couple of quick plugs. Troy, you mentioned speedrun. Is that open for any founders that are watching?
Yes, the speedrun applications are open. You can go to A16Z Games speedrun to find it. We are looking for any companies, any teams that are early who are building either games or tooling for games, but also really any kind of interactive entertainment, XR, creative tools. This is really a great opportunity to build alongside some of the best founders in the world and have an opportunity to talk to industry leaders.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. And Topi, if people want to find out more about Google Cloud and the Vertex platform, where do they go?
Well, if you're a startup, go to cloud.google.com/startup. There you can find our programs. You can get up to $350,000 in credits. Otherwise, just go to LinkedIn, find your nearest or easiest to reach Google Cloud person. We are so famous for helping, so reach out. They will find a person who can help you.
Yeah, awesome. And Emmanuel, I should say you're prolific on Twitter, so you should probably shout out your Twitter handle, but then if people want to start using Scenario, how do they start there?
Yeah, my Twitter is Emmanuel_2M. But otherwise, just go to the Scenario Twitter and you'll find some examples, use cases, tests. And otherwise, we're on scenario.com. It's pretty fast, pretty easy. You can self-onboard or just give me a call and we'll give you some generous free trial for a few weeks and some support if you want to give it a try.
Yeah, awesome. Brilliant. Well, thanks so much. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks to everyone who joined us. And yeah, hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dave, for coming.